From CBS News World Headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Here live on a beautiful day in a small town in Massachusetts. But instead of the studio, we're in a different location for today. Since March is the month of women's history, today we are taking you on a journey of women's literature and how it all began. Next to me lies the grave of Harriet Beecher Stowe. During Stowe's time, sentimental novels dominated 19th century literature. Middle-class women found refuge in their plots of character conflicts and female heroes, much like the romance novels of today. Women of the 1800s were in largely domestic roles, and sentimental novels embodied their dreams and daily anxieties. They were the most successful books of the time period and even shaped the United States. One inspiring story was that of Harriet Beecher Stowe. Female Stowe wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, an anti-slavery sentimental novel in the year 1852. It helped the nation empathize with slaves, and it inflamed even more sectional tensions. The story was based on...
Hold up! Allow me to tell my story.
Miss Stowe? How? What?
The slaving of the African race is a clear violation of the great law which commands us to love our neighbors as ourselves. Uncle Tom's Cabin is not only a book of fiction, it is a story of reality. Growing up in Cincinnati, Ohio, right across the river, was the slave state Kentucky. Throughout my life, I housed runaway slaves and constantly heard the harsh stories of the African Americans. Uncle Tom's Cabin is my anti-slavery novel that emphasizes with their awful conditions. The main character, aging black slave Tom, is killed at the end for his refusal to deny his faith. This book shook America and is still called the most controversial novel in American history. This book, my story, helped citizens of the mid-1800s decide what they wanted the condition of their country to be like, a nation of slavery or a free country.
Stowe immediately became an important female celebrity through her book. The president met her, queens of countries wanted to, and she traveled 3 different times to Europe. Feminists such as Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony wanted her attention. No longer was there a distinction of who wrote the book. It was the words that mattered, not the author.
I made not only literature, but women's literature change the nation and start the Civil War among the states.
Rumor has it that when Stowe met President Lincoln, he looked at her and said, "So you are the little lady that has brought this great war." We will be back after these short messages.
Billy Mays here. Are you tired of contemporary novels with boring plots and boring characters? Well, do I have a deal for you? For only 3 payments in 1995, you can read the best female novels of the 1800s. The first set includes Lucretia Mott's Discourse on Women, Elizabeth Cady Stanton's History of Women's Suffrage, and Sojourner Truth's personal narratives. As an added bonus, we'll even throw in Louisa May Alcott's Little Women.
During the break, we took a trip to Concord, Massachusetts, to visit the grave of another woman who changed women's literature. Behind these doors is the grave of Louisa May Alcott. Alcott is most famous for her children's novel Little Women, which was published in 1870. It still remains popular today and is based on many of the life experiences of Alcott. Alcott wrote in her novel, "I want to do something splendid, something heroic or wonderful that won't be forgotten after I'm dead. I don't know what, but I'm on the watch for it and mean to astonish you all someday." Not again! The idea for Little Women came from an idealized version of my family experiences. My father, Bronson Alcott, was a transcendentalist and greatly influenced me through his teaching. We grew up in poverty, and I grew up wanting to write, which was one of the few women's jobs of the time. In 1843, my father created the utopian community Fruitlands. Within the community, I was surrounded by many famous transcendentalists, such as Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, and women like Margaret Fuller. It was there where ideas of women's rights, temperance, and abolition were communicated continuously. I began to write embodied ideas of my life in my writing and eventually gained financial independence. Jo March, the main character of my novel Little Women, is based off of myself. She makes a life for herself without anyone's help. I hope I showed the world of what females are capable of. Alcott was a big suffrage leader and worked to resist all of society's expectations. Miss Alcott's book Little Women and its sequels were women's literature, although novels later in her life were adult fiction. She even wrote a narrative of her nursing experiences in the Civil War. Alcott's novels helped give voice to many ambitions of women, and she created a large advance in women's literature. As this report of Women's History Month comes to an end, let's evaluate how women have changed literature and how they still do today.
Thanks, Julia. Harriet Beecher Stowe and Louisa May Alcott provided a life for themselves and even their families through their writing. Sentimental novels of the 1800s dominated all books, and many even became jealous of the amazing sales and interest. Stowe's novel of slavery, Uncle Tom's Cabin, spurred the United States into a civil war and made slavery the most controversial issue at the time. Alcott's novels also spurred a change in women, giving them a sense of power that they could do anything they set their mind to.
A big thanks to Julia and Chris for covering Massachusetts, where our focused women's novelists became successful. Harriet Beecher Stowe and Louisa May Alcott were two of the original female novelists and ultimately paved the way for the powerful women of today. J.K. Rowling, female author of all the Harry Potter books, is now one of the richest authors in the world and respected by all. Today's society no longer differentiates women authors from men. They are all treated equally in the world of literature. To conclude, sentimental novels still exist today, including works by many females. Women read them and gain the same hopes and ambitions Stowe and Alcott created in their writing. Thank you for joining us on this day in women's history, Women in Literature. Join us tomorrow, March 6th, for Women in Science and Medicine.